Hello everyone, today I will be presenting my science fair project. My name is Lauren Page and I go to Islands High School, which is located in Savannah, Georgia. The title of my project is Litter Debris Comparison from two different Marsh sites located in Savannah, Georgia. Litter is a broad term that encompasses any item that gets abandoned or disposed of incorrectly. Many items can be considered litter, but the most common forms of litter found are plastic materials, but other materials like metal, glass, and rubber are also frequently found. As global production increases, the amount of litter we as a world produce also increases, and as litter production increases, it continues to pose and introduce serious threats to our environments and ecosystems. Litter produces many problems. Some of these issues include being a carrier of and for toxins, harming all forms and levels of life on the planet, as well as crowding our oceans with harmful materials. The reason that litter poses such a threat is because we are producing it at such astonishing rates and because most forms of litter are non-biodegradable, so it never fully breaks down and decomposes. Worldwide action and awareness are needed for the real dangers of litter debris pollution to be fully recognized and combated against. There have been many organizations and initiatives taken to remove litter debris from our environments, primarily our oceans, as well as programs formed with the purpose of learning more about litter and the problems it presents. This project is specifically aimed at finding patterns in litter debris pollution, primarily plastic pollution, found at two different local marsh locations. This study should help to better understand the litter debris present in Savannah marsh environments, as well as aiding in cleaning up the local environment. The objective of this environmental project is to determine how marine debris differs by location. The question I am trying to answer with my project is, how does marine debris found at low population areas differ from marine debris found at high population areas? Even though both study sites are marshes, there may be differences or similarities that may be interesting to discover. I did not include it on my poster, but my hypothesis is that the high population area will have more litter debris found than the low population area, because the high population area will have more people present, as well as the litter coming in from the ocean washing up onto the marshes. So after I figured out the broad idea, I needed to come up with some study sites. I chose Priest Landing and Butterby Beach for a few different reasons. One was because they were easily accessible, and another is that I needed at least two different locations. One that was high population access and one that was low population access, like I mentioned previously. As you can see here on the bottom left of my poster, there are pictures of my study sites. The picture on the left, is of Priest Landing, and the picture on the right is of Butterbean Beach. I then started thinking and discussing of materials I need in order to do this project, and planning a schedule to go out and pick up the litter. Finding the right time to go was difficult because since my locations are at the marsh, I must go during low tide, which changes all the time. So I had to constantly consult with the tide charts to figure out the date and time to go out. I've split my fieldwork into three separate parts. Part 1 is time to get out into the field, or in my case, the marshes. Before I go out, I had to first check the tides, as I previously mentioned. I then gather up my equipment that I will be using out in the marshes. The equipment I need to bring with me include a trash bag or a bucket, a clipboard, pencil, and marine debris checklist, my phone to take pictures of the litter I find and of my study sites. I also need to wear gloves and tennis shoes or marsh boots. I then head to the location with a family member. I do this for safety reasons and also so that we are able to clean up the area much quicker. My partner usually picks up the trash, and I am able to tally the items on the checklist much quicker than if I was doing both steps by myself. When we get to the location, we walk up and down a predetermined area size and pick up any trash we have in the area. As soon as we pick up the trash, we record that material and then just keep going throughout the area. We have a specified location for my project so that we can stick to the area every single time and so that the data is more accurate. We are done in the marsh when we have walked the full length of our area and cleaned out all the litter we were personally able to see and collect. Part 2 of my project happens when I return home. This is the step where I sort through what I have found and collect more data. When we get home, before I start sorting through the trash, I have to gather the other materials I need, which include 3 different weight scales, all measured in grams, and a smaller bucket. After I have everything I need, I then empty out and sort through the trash we find. I sort every item into similar materials and types. When I am done with that, I then properly dispose of the other materials that are not plastic, so the metals, glass, rubber, clothing, and other miscellaneous items that I have found. After that, I further divide the plastic category into clear subcategories so I can begin weighing. First, I have to zero in the scales. Then I put all of these subcategories one at a time into the small bucket on the scale to weigh the materials. Three examples of a subcategory would be plastic bags, plastic bottles, and plastic fragments. As I find the weight of these materials, I record that into the weight column provided by my checklist. After weighing everything, I properly dispose of all of my materials. After I put away my materials, I go inside where I begin part 3 of my project. This is where I input the data I find that day, both frequency of materials found and the weight of the plastic materials, into a spreadsheet on Google Sheets. Once compiled into Google Sheets, I compare the data from the 2 locations and conduct data analysis for each visit conducted. Now on to the results. So as you can see on my graphs at the bottom, I have 4 graphs. The top left one is the frequency of litter found at Priest Landing, and the blue shows my first visit to Priest Landing, and the red highlights the second visit to Priest Landing. And as you can see in this graph at the bottom, I know you can't probably see the words. That's the type of materials found, but you should be able to tell that the blue has a lot more frequency than the red. So you can basically deduce from this that the first visit yielded more materials found than the second visit, except in one category. So the bottom left is the frequency of items found at Butterbean Beach. And again, the blue highlights the first visit and the red highlights the second visit. And similar to Priest Landing, the blue primarily yielded more results than the red, so I found more materials during my first visit than the second. And then over here on the top right is the weight of the plastic materials from Priest Landing, and this shows the yellow is from my first visit and the green is from my second visit. And you can definitely tell in this one, as well as the bottom one, which is from Butterbean, the yellow or first visit yields much higher weight quantities than the second visit, which you can deduce from this that this was probably due because the first visit I had more materials found, and also because maybe the plastics weighed more on the first visit than the second visit. The first visit to each location yielded more materials found than the second visit. The first visit to Priest Landing yielded 120 total items, while the second visit only yielded 83. The first visit to Butterbean yielded 146 items, while the second only 102 items. Both times, Butterbean yields more materials than Priest Landing. The 2 most common materials found at both locations were plastic fragments and plastic food wrappers. The mean average of the weight of plastics between the 2 visits at Priest Landing was 118.95 grams, and the mean average of the weight of plastics between the 2 visits at Butterbean Beach was 119.87 grams. Plastic fragments were the most frequently found item at both locations. The overall decline in the frequency of materials found after each visit is believed to be due to my initial cleanup sweep. Since there was likely no one going out and cleaning litter from these locations before me, the materials had more time to accumulate. But once I got that initial load from each location, the amount of materials began to decrease as I began to go more frequently, and the litter did not have as much time to accumulate in these marshes. Another overall conclusion found was that my data follows a pattern of having high quantities of plastic fragments present. Plastic fragments were the subcategory with the highest frequency found for every single visit, regardless of location. Butterbean had higher recorded numbers of litter debris found during both visits, but the averages between the 2 sites' plastic materials were fairly equal, with Butterbean having a mean greater only by 0.92 grams. It was predicted that Butterbean would have a higher recorded number of materials found because it was a high population area, and this hypothesis seems to be supported by the data. Even though there are high frequencies of both materials, that does not seem to be too much of a difference in the type of materials found. Both locations have higher records of plastics than every other material. However, high quantities of glass fragments have been found at Priest Landing, which is greater than that of Butterbean. Additionally, more research and data collection are needed in order to draw more accurate conclusions for the litter debris found at these marsh sites. I plan on continuing my project in hopes of removing the litter from the environment, as well as finding more patterns in the marine debris found at these locations. A possible expansion of my project could include branching out to similar locations, such as more local marshes in Savannah, Georgia. That concludes my presentation of my science fair project. I hope you enjoyed, and goodbye.